Let's dive right into gate 34. We're going to look at the human design, everything from the gate to the center to the channel to the circuitry. Then we're going to look at astrology, the sign of Sagittarius. Then we're going to look at the programming partner. We're going to look at the quarter, the gene key, and also the I Ching. As usual, you get a lot of information and hopefully more awareness in these calls. I really hope that you use that when you go out in your life for more embodiment, so awareness and embodiment being layered, and that you actually start to feel your design and live from your inner authority and your aura type as you're moving through the world. Archetype 34, the Black Panther, in transit from November 22nd to November 27th. This is the gate of might in the I Ching. It's the power of the great. And in the gene keys, we have the frequency band that goes from force to majesty, and the human pathway is strength. In the human design body graph, we have the 34 in the sacral center. This center has to do with life force, sensuality, and creativity. In the low frequency, the sacral center has the keynote reaction. So that is when we don't have awareness and we're just reacting to the things around us, but it can also be our own chemistry, our own thoughts, our own emotions that we are reacting to. The gift frequency response, that's where we have a bit of space, a bit of awareness between the stimuli and actually how we are going to respond to it. And then the highest frequency is flow. If you have a defined sacral center, then you have consistent life force and you're going to have output from this center. You're going to impact the world through your life force. And depending on what gates that you have here, we're going to see different ways of impact. And then if you have an undefined sacral center, then you're going to filter this energy. And then it can be hard for you to know when enough is enough, because filtering everybody else's energy, then you need to be alone to actually know if you have energy or not. So if you are a projector or a manifester or a reflector, that is something to think about, to have enough time alone, and also at the end of the day to give yourself a little bit of time before you go to sleep to actually clear out that energy, and then maybe lay down and continue to circulate your own energy before you go into the dream state. The other archetypes that live in the sacral center is the rhythmic, the powerhouse, the water goddess, the playmate, the mountaineer, the eternal child, the nomad, the nourisher. So here we have this beautiful fork that we call the integration channels, which means that the 34 doesn't only have one harmonic gate, it has three different harmonic gates. So the first one we're looking at is when the 34 is connected to the 20. And anybody who's born this week in this transit is going to be a manifesting generator, because they're going to have this whole channel. Because when the sun is in the 34, the earth is in the 20. So you can't have the 34 as your sun or your life's work without being a manifesting generator. This is the channel of charisma, a design where thoughts must become deed. If you have this channel, you are here to be busy doing something that you love, and you will naturally empower others who witness your love of what you're busy doing. We have some keynotes for the 20, presence, witnessing, and integrity. And then for the 34, sacral flow, independence, and self-empowerment. If we look at this whole channel from the throat to the sacral, the frequency band from integral human design has to do with the whole process. So superficiality and force become violence. That one is powerful. Self-insurance and strength become charisma, which is the name of the channel, and then presence and majesty become ritual. And now we're looking at the connection between the sacral center and the splenic center, and this is what we call the channel of power, a design of an archetype. Looking at the keynotes for the 57, we have attunement, clairaudience, and gentleness. If you have this whole channel, your body is connected to your immediate environment and can alarm you of any incoming threats. Listen to your intuition, you can trust it. If you have this channel, you're going to have a defined spleen. So then you have that consistent response or splenic instinct that's always turned on. And here for the whole channel, we have force and unease becoming brutality. Again, you see they're kind of powerful keynotes here, especially in this shadow frequency, we have intuition and strength that become essence, and then clarity and majesty become power. And then we're looking at the last connection, and that is when the 34 is connecting to the 10. So here we have the channel of exploration, a design of following one's convictions, and the keynotes for the 10, self-love, genuineness, and true self. And if we are looking at the frequency band, self-obsession and force becomes stubbornness. And then we have naturalness and strength is conviction, and being and majesty is embodiment. And here we're looking at the circuitry. So this is individual circuitry, and it is in the middle of the body graph. So here you have a little cool circuit that we call the centering circuit, very ancient or primal. It's that way of the life force, and it's individual. So the life force and the ego of being able to not only survive but thrive. So even if it's individual circuitry, it feels tribal as it keeps us alive in the middle of the body graph. It's an interesting one. I probably will prepare a teaching soon on the circuitry, and that is for decoded, but it might be like a workshop for everyone because I think it's really important. It helps us to understand the gene keys so much better when we understand not only the three main groups of circuitry, individual, tribal, and collective, but when we understand the circuits within the circuitry, that's where we really start to have so much clarity of the gene keys and everything that Richard is writing about. And it becomes very simple to understand what he means, as opposed to trying to remember what the gene keys are about. So in this one, so here we can see this is when the 34 is connecting to the 10, then it's the centering circuit. And then here we have the other connections to the other gates. This is part of the integration channels. And now we're moving to astrology. And in astrology, instead of looking at 64 archetypes, we're looking at 12 zodiac signs. So in this particular archetype, we are in Sagittarius, which is connected to the ninth house, and the ruler here is Jupiter. This is the third time in the wheel that we have fire. We have cardinal fire in Aries, we have fixed fire in Leo, and then we have mutable fire in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the smoke that travels far and wide and rises to the heavens. This is service to spirit through the intuitive pursuit of truth. And some of the roles of Sagittarius is to be a seeker, a philosopher, and an explorer. And here we have one of those three places in the body graph where the opposite of the wheel is the same as the harmonic gate. And those ones are more common. There's more people that have 3420, 3740, and 4323 than other connections because they are both opposites in the wheel and they're channels in the body graph. We have already looked at those two together. And then we are in the quarter of mutation. This is the part of the wheel with those 16 gates that has two yang lines on the bottom. That is the binary. And the godheads that we have in that part of it, the wheel is Hades, Prometheus, Vishnu, and the keepers of the wheel, which isn't the godhead, but that's exactly here where we have the Chinese New Year, where we go from the last gate, the 60, into the 41. That's the difference where the calendar year it's ending, and then when we have the Chinese year's ending. So we have a few weeks there of integration before the 41 and the start codon comes in. Going to the gene keys, if we go back to knowing the circuitry, this is a sacral gate. It is pure life force. It doesn't even care about using that life force to make babies because it actually is the only sacral gate that isn't sexual. It's part of integration channels and it's either available or not. It's really not a good idea if somebody has the 34 and you can feel like they are not available to try to poke on them or pull them. That is just going to create a lot of frustration. That's the keynote for the sacral center. So if a 34 is not available, let it be. And then it will come back when that is aligned with that self-empowerment. Because this is Sagittarius, and where it sits in the body graph, we also often see that people are athletic with this gate. many times were in one of the main activations, and it's often the lower body because this is half horse and half man, right? So it's the lower body, the horse, that is the most athletic, usually. The dilemma here is trying, because when you have a lot of power, you either do or you don't. But to try is very frustrating energy for the 34. So when you have the 34, either you go for it or you don't. And of course, if you have all that energy, but you somehow is afraid of your own greatness, you might erase yourself. So that is a repressive. And then if you don't know how to hold all this energy in your vessel and hold it in a constructive way, then you can be bullish. And this is the last part. So here we're looking at the I Ching. So again, we're back to 64 hexagram, but those 64 are grouped into 8 elements, and those are the elements that you can see in the inner ring. So we have thunder, earth, mountain, water, wind, heaven, lake, and fire. And where we are now, we have heaven in all those hexagrams on the bottom. In this specific case, we have arousing thunder over creative heaven. In the I Ching, we call this hexagram the great power, awakening the creative essence in alignment with divine timing. Thunder over thunder is the same as hexagram 51. Heaven over heaven is the same as hexagram 1. So we could say that the 34 is a combination of those two energies. And that means that the shadow of force is agitated entropy, the gift of strength is initiative of freshness, and the city of majesty is awakened beauty. Here we have the last perspective. This is by Sergio Arboleda. This is called a Baxter 3D, where he's color coding the I Ching and connecting it to astrology. And this is very, very helpful if you know astrology as a way to understand the I Ching. In this case, we have two different elements. We already spoke about them, thunder and heaven. Thunder is the same as Aries, cardinal fire, thunder. It's initiating. So that is the first sign or the first house. And then heaven is the same as Leo or the fifth house. A lot of masculine, creative, penetrating energy. This is the symbol for this hexagram, the 34, and the background is thunder, and the actual verb, what we are doing, is heaven or Leo. So we were just looking at those two trigrams, thunder and heaven. And then what we know in the I Ching is that there are hidden trigrams. So if we don't look at the bottom line or the top line, we're going to have one trigram here and one trigram here. And that is going to be lake and heaven. So here you see heaven and here you see lake. And that's also what's color coded in the middle. And what is the recommendation that comes from the hidden trigrams? Lake is the same as Taurus, heaven is the same as Leo. So let's look at the braid. Here, when we look at what is the guy doing, he's intending. He has that arrow and he's pointing, focusing in one point. It's very masculine energy. Aries and Leo, pointing, intending, aiming at something. That's intention. Intend so that power can be expressed. You have all that power, and then if you focus on one point, then you can express that power in one point. And then the inner recommendation, it comes from Taurus and Leo, or heaven and lake. You can feel into that. Heaven, Leo, it's about creativity and creation. And then lake and Taurus, it's about abundance. So the recommendation is create abundance. So if you have the 34, instead of trying, instead of bullying others, instead of trying to raise yourself because you're so powerful, just focus on creating abundance. And then suddenly from that way of living, then you can aim at the things that are aligned with you. That would be one way of looking at this hexagram.